Again, my name is Jennifer, and we started this company called Momentum Resources 5 years ago. We are a boutique staffing company, and our niche is part-time or flexible full-time staffing. It's contracts and direct hire, working across every industry except for medical providers, so that's a little bit of a different insurance model. But you know, it was really a business born out of our collective frustrations. Me and my two business partners were all three working moms trying to figure out how to make it work. Like, okay, if I'm still at work at downtown at 6 o'clock, how am I getting to soccer practice for the twins at 5 o'clock? It wasn't working. And we knew there were a lot of people like us. And so we started working out with a lot of working parents and then quickly expanded to a lot of different people. Military retirees who have put in a 20-year career and still have a lot of years left but maybe don't want to work 80 hours a week. You know, graduate students, you know, any number of sort of different kinds of people in different kinds of roles. And I tell you, this is not at all where I thought I'd be. If you ask my classmates, I went to business school at Georgetown, if you ask who among our classmates is the most likely to start a company, I'm at the bottom of the list. I don't have a good risk profile. I'm very conservative when it comes to business planning, but I just knew we had a good idea and I knew we could do it better. And so sort of the backstory is, you know, I'm the first in my family to go to college, and I went to work in finance because I thought that was the best job, right? That's how I was going to make the most money. It was the most prestigious role. I mean, finance is really good. You need to have the finance and accounting background to run your own company. But I hated the work, I hated the people, and I was working 80 or 100 hours a week, and it was just pretty miserable.
Who were you working for?
Lake Mason. In
D.C.?
In D.C. So again, kind of need to be New York, but I was a trader. I was the only woman on my trading floor. All kinds of crazy things happened, but still some of the best lessons I ever learned from those people. But I went to business school. I thought, okay, well, I'm going to get ahead. I'm going to go into investment banking. I'm going to get off the trading floor and work harder and make more money. But then 9/11 happened, right? And so finance just stopped. There was no one recruiting. There were no finance jobs. And the day after 9/11, I found out I was pregnant with twins. So again, I'm in business school. I can't go back to working 100 hours a week. There are no jobs in my industry right now. What the heck are we going to do? Partners approached me and they said, you know what? We're going to start this company. And we went to the bank and we set up our credit line, or just set up our credit line, and they turned us down. We need some help with the business plan. Okay, I'm an MBA. I've got time on my hands. Let me talk to these guys. And I looked, and we'll get to this, the elements of a business plan, and that last piece that's pretty darn critical, the financial management piece. They didn't have any pro formas. They had no projections. And they were incredulous. I mean, they're HR professionals who are real. I mean, that's great because I don't have any HR background, and you know, we're a staffing company. It'd be a good thing to have. But they just couldn't believe that the bank wouldn't even talk to them because they didn't have any pro formas. And I said, you know, they need to know this piece right here, that if they're going to lend you money to extend credit, which is what you need if you're going to put people on your payroll, that you're going to be able to pay them back with interest. They're not going to give you money. And you know, at this time, the market's starting to tank and credit's tightening for small businesses. So it's really difficult to get access to credit if you're a small company. And so, you know, I walked them through the process, and I looked at this, and you know, they were just getting off the ground, and I said, you know what, we need to do this in D.C. And we went to our board of advisors and said, you know, we're thinking we're launching in Richmond, which is where my business partners are, but we'd also like to launch in D.C. as well. And they said, you know, you might want to be profitable in one market first. You might want to know what you're doing and have an operable business before you expand. And I said, yeah, we should. Let's just give it a shot. So, and the thing I think I was telling Amanda just last week was, I think the key to our success is we operate very lean. We use a lot of technology. We work remotely. We have people, we've grown on our own model, and that when we need a lawyer, we have a lawyer come in for a project. Our lawyer might work only 10 hours a week when we're reviewing contracts. We don't necessarily need to hire full-timers all the time.
Jennifer, how do you pick your partners, or how do they pick your...
You know, it's an interesting, yeah, that's a good question. One of my business partners was a friend of mine from college, from undergrad. And they knew I was kind of on the bench waiting to figure out my next move, and they said they need some help, so I did it. But then what I had to do was write a business case, essentially, for opening up in Washington, D.C. Why was it a good thing for a new company to expand basically from day one? I'm not sure that it necessarily was, but we did it anyway.
They're living in Richmond, right?
Yes.
But isn't there a lot more stuff going on in D.C. than in Richmond?
Yeah, you know, it's pretty interesting. I think that we've had a lot more, just there's different kinds of corporations. The problem with D.C. is it's almost too big of an elephant. Like, where do you even start, right? Tyson's Corner is bigger than all of Richmond. And we were in business for probably about a year before we realized we were working in essentially 13 mini markets, right? These big overlapping circles. that to get the work-life balance piece under control, you have to have your commute under control. That if you're living in Annapolis, you can't work in Reston and get to soccer practice for your kids at 5 o'clock. That's just not going to happen. So, whereas we had some of the highest margin contractors that working in the federal sector up here in Washington, they were able to go into a lot of different law firms and things that I just, through relationships could go to. Now, from a marketing perspective, we never really have spent any money on marketing. It's mostly our network, people I know, people who know me and our company and our work ethic. Whereas in Richmond, it's just kind of a different kind of marketing. You go to the chamber and you go to the country club breakfast, and that's the way they do their networking. So it's just a smaller town, and I think we represented some geographic diversity that was helpful. When they almost didn't pass the Continuing Resolution Act, and all of our people who were working on federal contracts were about to get shut down.
Who were your customers?
Yeah,
so who were you going after?
Yeah, we work with a lot of different companies. We work with a couple of big companies like Capital One Bank, right? Probably our biggest client. Also, probably our least profitable. I mean, they're a very big company. We're a little one, so we don't have a lot of negotiating power with them. We work with a lot of federal contractors, but mostly the mid-tier ones, so we end up being a subcontractor, sometimes third tier.
Do you work for small companies?
And we work with a ton of small companies, from a solopreneur author who needs someone to run her book tour. She wrote a book and she needs someone to manage the whole process, to small law firms and accounting firms. So it really runs the gamut.
And you offer A to Z? A
to Z, yeah, and that's been challenging. I think that's probably our biggest challenge, is that we can't go deep in any kind of industry or sector. The flip side is, if we were a legal staffing firm or a financial services staffing firm, we would have been dead in the water in a year. So our niche being not an industry, but rather the schedule, we know we can find the right people.
So if somebody in this room were to start up a business and we're running for a couple of years and we're growing, and they needed some help going to the next step, they talk to you about it?
Absolutely. So you started your company, you got the 501c3 going, and you're using QuickBooks for nonprofits, and you quickly realize, oh boy, I got these 990s I need to file. I need someone who is a nonprofit bookkeeper who can pay the bills. I don't need them all the time. They can come in once a week for 5 hours while the kids are in school, pay the bills, keep me out of jail because I'm getting the tax forms right. That's the kind of thing that a lot of the folks do.
And could you handle somebody that was operating in Minnesota if they were doing something like that?
Yeah, that's been a tough business problem for us. And that's our goal. We started working with people all over the country, but there's a thing about the way we work with contractors. So if the people are working remotely, like out of their house. So, let's say you move to Minnesota, but you're up and running, but maybe you want a little bit of extra work on the side. Working as a virtual administrative assistant or a bookkeeper, a writer, whatever it is you want to do. If you're working in Minnesota, we got to file taxes in Minnesota. We have to do business with the state of Minnesota. So we're a little company, right? So we were working in 7 states. The worst by far being Michigan. We thought we had solved a great problem. We had these terrific resources who were really hungry for the work and were very affordable compared to East Coast standards in terms of rates. But then the contract ended and they filed an unemployment claim. And so suddenly we're having to do business with the state of Michigan, who, by the way, has an employment office that's only open 3 days a week because of their own budget cuts. So it just became onerous for a little company like us. It's totally our hope that we can do that and leverage, so the geography is not a problem. I mean, for us, it's not a problem. It's just from an operational standpoint until we get a little bigger. Do you want to talk about these now?
Okay.
So what I put together was just a little business plan template. Now, I think the thing about starting a business plan, it seems so huge, and where do you even start? And I think I'm probably a little bit different than most entrepreneurs, and this comes from my overly conservative risk profile, which makes me not a likely entrepreneur. But you gotta have the big idea, right? You have to have the vision, because if not, and you have to be completely passionate about it. Because you're gonna go for a long time without making money, and you gotta do it because you love it. But it also has to be a business that works. And I've had a dozen ideas that I wanted to do, but the timing, the finances, the market profile, for whatever reason, I knew it wasn't the right time or wasn't the right thing. So